In this episode of MPTV, we're getting Grassroots. We're at Aioli Burger in Phoenix, Arizona. We're gonna talk to both owners about how they do stuff like this to keep in front of the customers' minds and how they didn't abandon their food trucks. Follow me. Hey, what's up? It's Matt. We're back with another episode of MPTV. Today, we are with Kyle at Aioli Burger to check out what's going on here with this concept that started with food truck, went to brick and mortar, but didn't abandon the roots. We'll get to that later. Kyle, what's going on?
Not much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So tell us the story, introduce yourself, and tell us about how you got into the burger business.
Yeah, absolutely. My whole background was sales and marketing. I actually worked at a restaurant with Tommy. I got him his first restaurant job. We were food runners at a place called My Big Fat Greek Restaurant when we were 17 years old. And he always wanted to be in the back of the house. He ended up moving on to resorts and went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, and was able to then graduate from there. And he did the ACE program at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. And when he finished that, another friend of mine and I had moved on into sales. I worked for companies like Yelp.com and Living Social. And I always wanted to get back into restaurants, but I didn't want to do it without owning one. So I think for me and him, we just kept, me and the other partner just kept bugging Tommy, like, come on, you got to come back here. You got to see what these food trucks are doing. And he came out. We took him out to a thing called First Friday out here and showed him what they were doing. And he's like, we can do this, but better. And after all that education and all the money in the ACE program, we tricked him and his now wife to move back here, and we started up Aioli Burger with one truck.
Wow. And what's it grown to now?
So Aioli Burger's got 4 trucks, 3 restaurants. One is inside of a Fry's grocery store, which is Kroger out here, and then a full catering company for them. We've spun off into other concepts. We have since bought out all of our other partners, and it's Tommy and I now. Tommy and I have come up with Modern Tortilla. It's a taco concept. Also Oakwood Fire Pizza. We have one called Super Mac Bros, a mac and cheese one. Protein and Poke. Those 2 actually came out of Ghost Concepts we created during the pandemic.
Nice. So talk about the food trucks, because I've got a little tie to not the food truck world, but the trailer world. We had a boat dealership. Okay. Me and my dad and brother for 9 years had a boat dealership. We got into it kind of on accident back in 1999 when I was also starting off in advertising. But we got to 2003 and we bought a fishing dealership. And none of us were fishermen. But about a year into it, I had heard about these fishing tournaments, which are crazy in Texas down here, so maybe a little in Arizona, where people would show up at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning, 200 people, and they would fish. And at the end of the time, they'd come back, weigh their fish, have a contest. Yeah. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, well, there's no sponsors here. I'm going to buy a trailer, and I'm going to put a stage on the side of it, and I'm going to bring it down, and every award that happens is going to be on our stage with our logo behind it, and we're going to have gear inside. And we used it not as a moneymaker, but as a way to drive business to the brick and mortar, because it was the only game there. I look at that as a lot of times the great opportunity of food trucks is when you go from food truck to brick and mortar, that is your best marketing. What I see is a lot of places abandon the food truck when they go brick and mortar. You guys didn't. How come?
Absolutely. I mean, we looked for a brick and mortar for almost a year because it's hard out here in Arizona to find a place that you can be centrally located or located somewhere decent to serve people, and also they'll allow you to park, food trucks behind it and secure. So we took the time to find that location. And our first location that we opened, we actually parked all of our food trucks behind it. And back then we only had maybe 4 food trucks than the 9 we have now. But we were able to do that, and it made total sense because even before we opened, we knew we were opening 3 months out. We started sending the food truck to apartment complexes around the area, office complexes around the area. Hey, while we're out there, we'd send our marketing person, hey, let them know that we're opening up. We'd send the new general manager of the restaurant, hey, you're going out there, you're taking orders, but you're telling everybody about how we're opening it up right next to the dog place. So that was a no-brainer for us, and we see that a lot with people, thinking, hey, I got to this level, I'm gonna get rid of this. It's like, that's what got you there, don't get rid of that,
Yeah, and it's huge, and that's a lot of times you see that. I think that's people think that's the progression. But for me, and granted, I'm a marketing person, so I think marketing is what can take things to new levels, or they can drop it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when that's what you're known for, then you go into the brick and mortar and now there's nothing on the street. There's nothing more valuable than a bright vehicle driving or being pulled around town.
No, definitely. And there's been times where, when it's slow in the summer here in Arizona, it's 110 degrees. Their trucks aren't going out as often, so we asked the landlord, hey, can we go park it out up front? Because also the restaurants slow down. So now people are seeing it, and it's, like you said, it's like a billboard.
So I'll give you a trick in the food truck business. And this is more of a marketing, and there's a couple of flower places that have done this. A buddy of mine's company did this. They had 4 trucks. The wrap on them is a different color on each side. So it's literally, if you're looking at the front, this side's blue, this side's green. And he's like, Matt, people think we have like 100 trucks.
I like that.
Because they'll see the green one, and then a minute later they see the blue one. It's the same one.
I love it.
But he said that literally made people think, like, this place is huge, man. They've got 20 trucks. He's like, no, we have 4.
We have 4.
He's like, we just got creative on the wrap. And he actually had an excuse when they did the wrap. It wasn't on purpose at first. The first one, I want to say, there was something wrong with it. And the guy's like, somehow we messed it up. And he's like, oh, just keep it. And it went on from there.
I love it. I love that. And that's funny because what we started doing during this pandemic is we actually, with those ghost concepts I mentioned, we spun those off into food trucks. And we didn't want to go out and spend $30,000 to $70,000 on a new food truck.
Yep.
We actually had one that we weren't really using. So when we rewrapped it, we put 3 logos on it.
Okay.
And when you open it up, it doesn't look like either of the trucks, and you just throw the magnet up. And that truck, it's Super Mac Bros. You pull it off, next day it's Protein and Pokey.
That's
so
awesome.
we kind of figured out the way, like, instead of investing all this money into one truck and going out there and it failing, why don't we just put it across the board and use it? You can use it 3 times, and if it's busy, then hey, let's make it its own truck.
Yep. So, talking about 2020, what happened with transitioning into different ideas and pivoting into stuff. You guys have done some pretty unique things with the ghost kitchens. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, when this all started, we had food trucks. We were vetting maybe 20 leads a day. But coming in, we were having 20 cancellations a day. So our sales team turned into customer service people like that. Just trying to retain people as much as possible. And then we kind of spun off a meal prep company during that. We were donating meals to first responders and keeping our employees working, and people were able to make donations through our website, and we made the meals. But the ghost kitchen concepts, my business partner, Tommy, he came up with all these menus, and everything was cross-utilized, and we just kind of threw it at the wall and saw what stuck. And out of the 5 we did, 2 of those became food trucks, and another one's actually one that we use for just strictly catering. And we built websites for them and did all that. But we got them on Uber and Grubhub and DoorDash, and we were running those out of all the restaurants, making sure, because we couldn't have people dine in here, so we were able to kind of spread out a little bit more.
Yeah. And from talking to you, the short time I've known you and some of the stuff I looked online and looked you up, your background sales and marketing.
Yeah.
All sales in my mind is also tied to marketing.
Of course.
But I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of restaurant owners in particular, especially you got a lot of guys that are chefs, and they create an awesome concept and they've got great food and everything there, customer service. I always tell restaurants, I'm like, you're a salesperson. Your job is to walk out on that floor, touch tables, and sell people why to come back. It's to be in the community, it's to be at a food truck. You've obviously pushed that sales culture from your days of living social and back in those days to now. What have you done to bring that importance of sales in the restaurant business?
Yeah, the biggest thing, a buddy of mine's dad's was in the radio business, and he mentioned back, I think it was in the 80s or something, McDonald's really took a big step back and Taco Bell went forward with ads during the recession, and they just took a huge market share. So I've always thought about that. We thought we were recession-proof, we weren't necessarily COVID-proof, but we didn't take our foot off the gas. AdWords, we actually, when we went into this whole pandemic, we were supposed to open up our grocery store location. They put it on hold for 2 weeks. I called Kroger and I said, look, I got 15 people ready to work. I can't let these people go. Let's just move forward. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So we did that. And then the location we're in now was actually another fast casual burger place. Guy walked away from it, left everything down to the spatula. We came in, we threw a coat of paint, a bunch of logos up, put our own spin on it, and we opened this place up on Labor Day. So we grew during this whole thing. For us, it was like, this can't last forever, right? Maybe things are going to be different from here on forward, but we're a fast casual place. We need to take advantage of the real estate and the market that we can do this. And so we jumped on it, and we didn't really look back.
Yeah, if you look back at every recession, I was around in business with our boat and RV dealership and in advertising when September 11th happened.
Yeah.
I lost personally $1 million the summer of '08 when the boat dealership, we ended up closing it when that recession hit.
Yeah.
You know, there's opportunity. I remember one of my friends' dealerships was buying our inventory. We decided to close because we were going to sell anyways.
Yeah.
And we were getting out of it in October, and then July came, and life changed a lot in that summer, if you were around in the summer of '08.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my friends' dealerships bought a lot of our inventory, pennies on the dollar. Somebody's like, man, aren't you upset about that? I'm like, no, he's taking advantage of an opportunity. I mean, it's out there.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting out, he's staying in. If he can optimize, and you know, some people might pull their money back. He's like, no, I can make 30 more points if I buy that business. I buy that inventory.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of that, and you know, my mom nearly almost lost her house in '08, and I remember having everything boxed up, and you know, just being out of high school and not being able to help with that. And I always thought about those situations where this is where you could make money. You know, we always say, you know, Tommy and I were like, man, if we would have just had $1 million back then, we could have bought up every house, you know, on our block, and we wouldn't have to work right now. So we kind of have that mentality. You know, we're still conservative enough that we're not going to, you know, lay all the chips out and, you know, put it all on, you know, 23 and hopefully hit it on roulette. But we're out there, you know, we're grinding it out. We're finding new opportunities because I think this is the time to do it, like you said.
Yeah. And you mentioned you had a sales team with your food trucks.
Yeah.
Talk about that, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say they had a sales team with their food trucks.
Yeah, I mean, I've always treated this like all we're doing is selling something. We're selling an experience. You know, we did about 150 weddings a year leading up to this, and I just wanted to do more. And you know, I wanted to be able to say, okay, if we're not your caterer, then let's go after them in 3 months after they book somebody else and see if they want us to be their late night snack, or what are they doing for the rehearsal dinner. So we're in the process of really building that up. We had to take a step back from it. We had 2 people during this, and we still have those 2 people. But the goal is now to really grow this thing. We have a commercial kitchen. We have a boardroom. I don't have a board of directors, so plan on cubiculing that off and putting a sales team in there and really start selling these things once, you know, people are really ready to gather again.
So what's your biggest lesson you've learned to pass on to other entrepreneurs? You know, not being a restaurant person coming into this, being in marketing sales, what's something you've learned the past couple of years that you think businesses outside of Arizona, don't do this, but businesses in the other parts of the country that could take from you that you see people don't do?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we mentioned about the food truck, not getting rid of it, if you have something that's getting you to a level, you know, I have a buddy that's in garages, and he was doing retail garages, and he got to the point where he got a big commercial contract and he stopped doing the retail. It's like, and then his business totally fell off when commercial businesses weren't, you know, people weren't there. And it's like, you took that hit when everyone was at home and spending residential, and he was not coming up in those keywords. So I think really for me, it's what got you there, keep it going unless it doesn't make sense anymore. And then the other thing that we've learned over the years is, you know, I listened to one of your podcasts, I think it was the one with the pizza guy in Utah, and you had mentioned, you know, so many people, you know, they try something and it's not working, they just get rid of it. And me coming from advertising, I kind of knew, well, maybe it is the call to action that's not working. It's you're not, you know, maybe, you know, if hey, we're not getting anything in here right now for catering. Okay, well, let's try and drive people to the restaurant. Let's change up our AdWords. So I think that's a big thing too, is so many people just think, you know what, this didn't work, I'm going to move on, you know. And like you said in that podcast, you know, 90% of the time it's you know, call to action. Yeah,
it almost always is. I had this exact conversation with, I have a company that handles our Google AdWords for our business and some of our Facebook stuff too. And somebody was like, that's weird, you don't do your own Facebook ads. I'm like, well, we're an expert for restaurants. Yeah. He's an expert for entrepreneurs, for marketing companies. And so I was talking to him a couple weeks ago, and he called me and we're going over the stats, and he's like, man, we had 1,400 people click this call to action and spend time on this page. They're spending 3-4 minutes. It's a restaurant owner page. They're restaurant owners unless they just have a lot of free time. Yeah. But they aren't taking the action. I said, well, we failed on the page somewhere. Yeah. It's not the ads. It's not Facebook's terrible, Google's terrible, YouTube's. They've proven they're not. Yeah. It's that whatever we said in the ad to get them to this point, there's a disconnect.
Of course.
And I see that a lot with businesses. I mean, I've been in advertising since '99. And I remember one time a guy named John Carley, JFK Windows. John, if you ever watch this, I'm sorry, but this is funny. He had JFK Windows in Cincinnati, and he had called up and he had done some advertising on a radio station for a couple months, and he canceled. And I've always told people, when you buy advertising, invest enough that you're going to be in it for a year or two.
Yeah.
Because, especially radio, you're building a relationship with an audience. It's not Johnny come lately for most of them. And most people don't just wake up and go, I got to have windows tomorrow. It's a process.
Yeah.
And so he's like, after like 2-3 months, we're getting out. We're not going to do it anymore. We're going to stop advertising and this and that. And I said, hey, by the way, do you have a toolbox in here? He's like, well, of course. Why? I go, can you get me a ladder and some screwdrivers? Why, Matt? I'm like, we're going to take your sign off the building. What? You just told me you're quit advertising. He looked at me and was like, okay, I get where you're going. I'm like, well, dude, you bought the sign. You spent $100,000 on that sign.
Yeah.
You didn't rip it off the building when nobody walked in here.
Yeah.
Why do you consistently rip your radio from this station to this station, this station? Facebook. I see clients all the time. Oh, we tried Facebook ads for a month. It didn't work. I'm like, yeah, Facebook's not a billion-dollar profit company because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's because you didn't give it time. You didn't let it marinate. And that's what Tyler from Highland House, Pizza Pie Cafe in Highland House is talking about.
Yeah.
They work with us. And that was great. He came to me after a few months and said, we looked at it and we saw some opportunity. And he's like, hey, and sometimes that conversation is, hey, Matt, we're going to talk to your team and cancel this. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I see some positives. How can we fix it?
Of course.
And I think that's the key element, is that there's always positives. And if you let those build up, it's a snowball going downhill. If you stop the snowball after 10 feet, you never get a big ball.
Yeah.
Okay, break time. Restaurant owners, you're watching MPTV, so you're obviously interested in increasing your sales and profits. But what if I told you you could eliminate the hope and pray out of your marketing? You could spend money and actually see results. Most marketing starts with attention, like a billboard. The problem is that attention leads nowhere. That's why we created the ROI Engine Restaurant Program. We take attention and gain huge engagement, whether it's in-store or online. We help you build a database with deep customer information that's comprised of email, cell phone, and birthday. And then we drive them into the restaurant with trackable results. Yes, results you can actually see. If you're interested and want to have a conversation, check out restaurantmarketingthatworks.com. Worst case scenario, you get a lot of great ideas. Now back to the show. Talking about marketing, what has been some of your things with marketing? You've got a polished brand. I love the colors. I love the vibe. What have been some things you've done that have worked?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the way we've grown all this is I worked at Yelp, so I understand how to respond to people, how to do that. We have a company, Ovation, where we do text message marketing, and we can communicate with the guests. They get once they punch in, they get the notice, and they can tell us, hey, my bun was a little bit overcooked. So we can, rectify that. And I have my managers doing that. So I was doing it all at first, and then my marketing person was doing it, and then I said, well, wait, these people are on location. Like, the general manager's got a cell phone. Why aren't they interacting with these people? Hey, it's Karen. I was the one that took your order. I'm sorry that this happened. I won't let it happen next time. I think that's such a different, reaction. And that was something that we honestly rolled out during this entire thing, and we weren't doing it before. We do some email marketing stuff that we get a decent click-through rating on. A lot of the things that we do is grassroots. Like I said, when we open a place, we try and send the food truck to apartment complexes around, businesses around. We might go there and only do a $200 lunch, and that's terrible on the food truck. But that might have been 20 people that are literally down the street, and then I've seen those people walk into these locations, on the grand opening. It's like those people aren't going to come in on that grand opening just because we put flags out on the street.
Yeah, they're there because of the grassroots effort.
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as the catering and all that goes, our AdWords programs worked really well. The SEO company that we work with has done some really good stuff, and I think it's really just a matter of we didn't take our foot off the gas during this whole thing. Our searches went down, our click-through, a lot less clicks because people weren't looking to book a food truck for their wedding, in July of last year. But once people are able to start thinking about it, we were the ones there. Anyone that took the foot off the gas, they were gone, and that's kind of always been our mentality.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, stuff like this too, is that there's less pieces of pie to have.
Yes.
But there's a lot less people eating that pie.
Of course.
I remember about a year and a half ago, one of my team members, Ashley, took it on her own to look. We had a client of ours who had a handful of restaurants, fast casual, on college campuses. And we had tweaked our advertising to kind of cater differently, but we had also had abandoned, like everybody else had, Facebook for that 18 to 21 crowd.
Yeah.
Well, Ashley looked at it and said, if everybody abandoned it, there's less people going after it. They're still there, maybe not as much, maybe not as often. And so she went back and created campaigns 18 to 21, 21 to 24 on Facebook. Within 2 weeks was getting 50% better results than we were on adults on Facebook.
Wow.
And I looked at it, and my client's like, wow, that was pretty intuitive on Ashley's part. I said, that's what she does. She works on thousands of campaigns a month.
Yeah.
But I said, even me, I was like, what are you, crazy? They aren't on there. I have an 18-year-old daughter now who's on Facebook all the time.
Of course.
But I remember looking, I said, the lesson here is that there's less people fishing there now. Procter & Gamble gave up on the 18 to 21-year-old on Facebook. They went to Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat. So there might be 80% less of them than there were 10 years ago, but there's 100% less companies going after them. It's the same thing with what you're talking about.
Absolutely, and I think a big thing that I forgot to mention is like doing things like this. You know, I didn't have to pay you to do this, right? This is my time. I'm learning something from it, not only, but I'm going to take this when this video comes out, and we're going to put it on all social media platforms, and then it's going to be a Throwback Thursday 6 months from now, and then it's going to be on our website, and in our email campaign. So the news has been a big thing. If the news has reached out to us at 5 in the morning and said a food truck fell out, we need you to come down here. And Tommy's not a morning person, but I'm calling him 6, 7 times, getting his wife up and going, we got to go, we got to get on the news. We've never turned down a news segment, and that's something that it blows my mind. That's free advertising. You're getting in front of people, and people don't feel like they're getting sold, and you're standing there talking about what burger of the month we're doing, and we're selling to them. And then we've seen those things, the websites take the hikes, because we watch all the analytics, when we're on one of the news stations. So that's another big thing. When you have opportunities like this, I don't ever pass them up. Hence why I jumped on it when I saw your email. Yeah,
and it's always a chance to tell the story and get the word out.
Of course.
So final question, I always end with airplane mode. You're obviously a driven guy.
Yeah.
I can see that you're a hustler, that you guys do a lot, you and your business partner. What do you do when you leave here to maybe get away from it, get your mind right? Like me, I like to go to the beach, I like to go for runs. Do you have an airplane mode, a button you hit? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I have a 18-month-old son and a wife, and we like to just go home, and I don't do any cooking here, so I actually cook dinner pretty often. She cooks dinner. We plan out menus, and we like to try new things in the kitchen and everything. And then we're big on just, streaming, watching TV, but I've learned, I started putting my phone away from, the nightstand. Especially with an 18-month-old, he might wake you up in midnight, and then I'm looking, how did everything go? I'll skim sometimes, be like, okay, there wasn't a fire, I can go back to bed, But for us too, we've been able to, do a lot of things here. Obviously we traveled a lot more when we were able to, but we've still done some traveling, and even if we have to jump in the car and drive up to Sedona, 2 hours, and go to an olive oil shop and test out olive oils, or do wine tasting and things like that. For me, it was always really hard to shut it off. Even my sales background, I always worked from home, but I was, at Living Social, there was 4,000 people when I was there. As far as sales reps, there was 2,000. I was like top 10, always chasing, wanted to be, I wanted to be one. I didn't want to be top 10. So I always had a hard time turning it off. And honestly, getting married and having a kid will help. She polices me.
She pushes the airport buttons sometimes.
She does, and and it's funny because even when I get home, we enjoy what we do so much, and we have so many projects. It's like sometimes I'm calling Tommy and I'm like, hey, we got to talk about this. What if we did this with the ghost kitchen, or what if we did this with the commercial kitchen? So, but I love what I do. We've bought out our silent partners to do this full force. We're 33 years old. We're ready to just go straight on into this, and we want to build something up. We both have sons, and we want to leave some sort of legacy for them. Absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
And usually this is where we end the podcast and say goodbye, but we're going to go talk to Tommy in the kitchen and find out what he's doing to help make this guy's marketing and sales a lot easier, because when you have an awesome product, it makes life a little easier.
Definitely.
So, David's going to do his little speedy camera thing. We're going to walk back into the kitchen. We'll see you in a minute. Okay, as promised, we're back in the kitchen. We're with the partner, Tommy, the man that cooks up all the concoctions.
That's right.
What's going on? Tell us about the business, what you're doing from a food standpoint, because your partner, we talked about the sales, the marketing.
Sure.
That's part of the equation.
Yes.
If you don't have an awesome product, it doesn't really matter.
It all flops there, right? So the big thing is cross-utilization. I think that's where a lot of restaurants that get kind of crazy with their menu and just start adding in all these things. the key is to add a lot of things, but not make it look like it's just, 2 or 3 items, but you've got 12 or 15 items. So something's still exciting, but that ensures that you turn through your food a little bit faster so it doesn't go bad, so there's no waste there. And then it also just makes it easier on the line. You can work in smaller kitchens. That's where we come from, is food trucks, right?
Yeah.
So we basically have a food truck just right here, which we found that's key. Square footage costs a lot of money, and you got to do these micro restaurants if you want to be there the next day. So
Yeah, I was going to ask that. When you said a small space, I mean, the ultimate small space is a food truck.
Right.
So did you, I think the inclination I've heard from food truck owners, a lot of them abandon the food truck, go brick and mortar. You guys didn't.
Yeah.
But they also come in like, I can expand everything I can do now.
Yes.
Why did you guys, what was the reason you guys came into the kitchen and kept it the same way?
So I think really the key is more dining space. Like that's where your customers are. That's where they're going to sit. If you're taking up all that for your gigantic kitchen, you're just not going to be able to turn those tables fast enough to be able to keep up with the profit.
Restaurant owners, did you know Matt has free online marketing courses that teach you how to successfully market your restaurant? Email support@mattplapp.com to get access to the courses and a free social media content calendar.
So talk about the food trucks back then. I
Yeah.
know when you came to the food trucks, you came from a different world.
Yes, big time.
So what was your background before this?
Man. Yeah, before this, I worked just fine dining, really. I worked in resorts, worked at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York.
Yep.
So just, I have a lot of classical training, but I'm born and raised in Arizona. I was out in New York, and Kyle and my buddy Mike called me up, and they're like, man, let's open up a food truck. And I'm like, you guys are nuts. Like, that's not me. Like, I don't think that makes any sense. And I was out here for some holiday, and we went to First Friday downtown. They do like a festival, first Friday of every month, and went and looked at some of the food trucks, and I was sold. There were lines like wrapped around for miles just to go eat off of a food truck. And we tried the food, and I'm like, this is what they're standing in line for. Like, we can do it, and we can do it a lot better. Like, let's just do it. So I sold my car. Me and my wife, we moved out here. We just made it happen. I was fortunate enough, my family helped out a little bit, but we started with $36,000 as our initial investment in the whole company, and now we've grown it into. Kyle's talked about it. Quite a bit of other things. So it's been an exciting journey, and I'm glad that I did it, and I can use my expertise. If it is just burgers, we don't look at it as just burgers here. We are offering, a gourmet burger that would cost you $25 at a fine dining restaurant for $12 to $15.
So what did you bring with you from the classically trained? Another friend of mine's a guy named Joseph Mahone out in LA. He had a brand called Burger Parlor. He's actually transitioned with the pandemic to a Jack's Kitchen. It's a chicken concept, but he had great gourmet burgers, and I was amazed at the quality.
Yes.
And he came from the same thing, classically trained. Is that what you kind of brought?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the quality, how to work with your purveyors, right? Like, they're gonna send you stuff, and it might not be up to par, but you know what that par is and what it should be and what you're paying for. And I think a lot of it goes into negotiating, deviations and deals with them is a huge part of it. Now that we have some buying power, we're able to kind of push that and move it into our favor, where before we were at the mercy of them. But we always stuck true. We haven't really changed anything. We've kept it the standard from the beginning. And a lot of times with growth, people get, kind of enticed to change it up a little bit because they see, I can do a little bit smaller cheese slice or one less tomato, right? But I think, we saw our success. Like, don't change it. Let's just keep going with it and find other ways to make sure that we can make it work.
So, last question. I know you're doing some ghost kitchen stuff. There's a wing concept.
That's right.
And I don't know how that started with you guys, but I know a lot of times I hear from clients of mine, they've got the person that's on the front, that's the sales marketing, and you got the person that actually has to put in place.
Figure it out, right?
What that person puts. How did you transition and so you don't stress the kitchen, bring in a ghost kitchen concept that doesn't really mess up the flow of what you're doing?
Exactly. That's funny you say that. Kyle and I were just talking about it because we have a pasta concept. So, and it was really successful when we were doing it as a ghost kitchen from our commissary. He's like, why can't we do that here? And I'm like, it doesn't work, right? Like, we have to make sure that we can do it fast, efficient, not hurt what we're doing at Aioli Burger, and that's primarily burgers.
Yep.
And wings was really the perfect thing, you
Yep.
know? All I need is a fryer.
Fryer.
I got 3 of them. I got plenty of room. Let's rock it out. So, yeah.
Well, cool. So last question as far as the podcast, I call it airplane mode. You know, you're in a business that demands your attention, that your phone probably rings nonstop, text messages, all sorts of things. What do you do when you leave here to turn it off, to refresh, keep fresh, and not get burnt out?
A lot of it, I go get massages a lot, and I do some float therapy every once in a while.
The salt tanks?
Yeah, the little deprivation
Yeah.
tank, yeah. So I found that to be super successful. I can just kind of refocus, regroup. I'm alone. There's nobody that can get me in there.
There's no cell phone.
That's it.
Well, cool. I appreciate your time.
Of course, thank you.
So that's all we got for this episode of MPTV. We'll see you next time.